Hello, and thanks for listening to the Human Element Podcast, Beyond the Cart, E-commerce Insights from Human Element. I'm Kevin Gardner, Development Manager here at Human Element. I'm joined by Tom Flierl, Chief Commercial Officer at Alma Commerce. Today we're talking about Znode B2B commerce platform, and specifically about its multi-store functionality. Tom, I want to thank you for joining me.
Kevin, great to be here. Thank you for hosting me.
Absolutely. So, what are the signs of businesses outgrown a single storefront?
I don't know if there's a company outgrows a storefront. I think it's their business model, right?
Mhm.
I mean, certainly one way they outgrow it is through M&A activity. Manufacturer distributor is rolling out multiple brands. They need to have a storefront per brand. That would be the most obvious. But a lot of times, think about companies that stand up company specific stores or customer specific stores. Very common in uniform, very common in safety, very common in promotional products where each store is branded to that customer and has its own specific procured set of products, maybe even things like logos if it's in the uniform category that get applied, customer specific logo libraries. That is really where you start to see multi-store come into play. And then I guess the third way is, we talked about M&A, but it might be multi-regional. They
Mm-hmm.
may want to stand up a North American store, a European store, different regional stores, and manage all that centrally, certainly.
Nice. Yeah. And I mean, it's just digging right into it. What makes Znode special when it comes to like being able to launch like 50 stores at once? If you just wanted to just go in and
Sure.
launch 50 stores with different brands and regions and channels.
Well, the architecture was built from day one for multi-store. And what's unique about the architecture, and this is getting a little bit technical, Kevin, but I
Mhm.
think you'll appreciate this. If you think about a traditional retail platform, they typically have single catalog, single store architecture. And so even traditional retail platforms that are now started getting into B2B and trying to show multi-store, they still have to export a catalog to a store. And so it
Mhm.
still is single catalog, single store. In complex B2B scenarios, that doesn't work very well. And the magic behind all of this is catalog management. So at the core of Znode, there's a PIM, product information management tool, and that is where all catalogs are managed. And out of the admin console, unlimited numbers of storefronts can be created, and catalogs can be applied one to many, many to one.
Mhm.
So think of the architecture having PIM, unlimited catalogs, and you're never duplicating data. The catalogs are a virtual replication of the product information of the PIM, and then being able to assign those catalogs one to many, many to one across multiple stores. That is the big differentiator versus having to export a catalog, potentially duplicate the data there, and then attach it to a store, which you have to do in a traditional retail architecture.
Nice. Yeah, that's one of the things we've noticed here at Human Element when it comes to different platforms that were not natively B2B to begin with, and where they're just kind of winging it and trying to get to that point and modify and augment their existing infrastructure and their architecture to work for that, is that it tends to be very heavy on the database. It tends to be
Right.
very heavy on access, and it tends to slow the site down on some occasions. Won't name any names. I know you and I both know the names
Yeah.
of some of the platforms that have that difficulty. But one of the things that I wanted to highlight personally in working with Znode is that Znode seems to be more of a platform. As you said, it's more B2B first. It was built to be B2B, so that means it's performant around being B2B. That's just kind of where it lives.
Absolutely. And in B2B, catalog management is everything. So if you think about what are the core features that matter in B2B, everybody who's selling B2B talks about, well, you have to have an account structure versus a user structure, right? Because individual users typically ladder up to accounts, and those accounts all have contract rules. That's wonderful. So you have an account structure, maybe a more entry level B2B platform actually allows for account specific price lists, or maybe they're making tax and calls to an ERP to make that happen. But the magic is in the catalogs, because if you have customer specific contracts, those contracts often have a procured approved set of products. Very common. I talked about the uniform industry, etc.
Hmm.
Obviously, if you work for company A and you're an employee, when you log in, you don't want to get company B's uniform program,
Right, right,
right?
exactly.
You get
Right.
company A's program. So that would be one example, but it's everywhere in B2B. I mean, there's segment specific catalogs. You may be a very large distributor of plumbing products, industrial products, electrical products, and there may be some cross sell. But if I'm a plumber logging in, I don't want to see the electrical catalog. I want to see the
Mhm.
catalog that's specific to my segment. So catalog management is at the core of true B2B. It's also at the
Mhm.
core of anything from an ease of operations and an ease of scale. Catalog management is core to any company running multi-store e-commerce.
One of the things you and I spoke about before this, and when we were prepping for the episode, was talking about obviously you can set up storefronts to where those particular storefronts could be, set up with like a voucher system where you could potentially go in and you could purchase. Let's say you're a construction company and you have your new people onboarding, and they could come in and they get a voucher to purchase their boots and their shirts or whatever they need. They could go there. Can you also kind of hit on that a little bit and talk a little bit as well about one of your other products, Artify, that you could actually use to customize as well too?
Sure, absolutely. And there's a little bit of overlap in those categories. But again, vouchers are pretty common in B2B. It's very common in safety. An employee needs to log in and get a new set of glasses, gloves, high vis vest, go down the list, right?
Hmm.
Very common in uniform, very common in work boots and any sort of wearable item that is used in the safety industry. The employee logs in, rather than having to pay with their own credit card and expense it, they have a voucher or a spend limit of up to X amount of dollars. They simply find what they need, put it into the shopping cart, type in their voucher number, and they move on, and it arrives wherever it is, at the job site, at their door the next day. You brought up Artify. That is our product. So Amla Commerce is our parent company. Znode
Hmm.
is our B2B e-commerce platform. Again, very strong in multi-store. Artify is our product customization platform. It is a multi-tenant SaaS platform, heavily used in the promotional products industry, the uniform category, the safety category, these categories that also use multi-store. And that allows for, Kevin, if you are an employee working in some sort of industry where you have to get your uniform and you want that uniform to customize, so it says Kevin Gardner on it in
Hmm.
embroidery, and you can choose from a pre-approved set of logos. You can actually customize your own uniform directly in the PDP page, see a virtual proof of it, approve that proof, put it into the shopping cart, enter your voucher, and buy that item. The nice thing about Artify operationally, then, it actually sends an output file to the production team to build that uniform, then using those specs, everything down to
Hmm.
thread count and embroidery, thread color, all of the XY coordinates for where the logo goes on the uniform, and then the production team can produce it, obviously ship it out to that employee when it's ready to go. So those two platforms work very closely together and serve those companies where multi-store matters, but multi-store matters because they're running programs. They don't even talk about e-commerce. They talk about, we run uniform programs for the
Hmm.
Fortune 500. We run branded apparel and branded merchandise programs for the Fortune 500. They don't talk about e-commerce. E-commerce is how those
Right.
programs are fulfilled.
Right. So let's back up a little bit. I know we're throwing out a lot for everyone listening or viewing this. We're throwing out a lot of things that you can do with Znode, but just kind of just taking just a baseline approach here, and just looking at what does like a centralized control and localized experience mean? Like, what does it really look like in respect to Znode?
Well, the way I'm going to talk about it is just everything is configurable. So rather than start with a PIM, rather than having your data in a master catalog, having to export it, and say you have 10 stores, and anytime you want to update product information, you have to go to every 10 stores and update that
Hmm.
catalog that's been exported. Instead, you update it centrally in the PIM. It's pushed to all 10 stores automatically, or to all 10 catalogs, if you look at it that way. It's a better way to look at it. That'd be one. And then it's very common that each store has its own unique set of entities. Some stores may have vouchers, some may not. Some stores, based upon the account that logs in, may have different payment types. One account may have a credit card, the other one may have voucher, the other one may have ACH, and the other one may have a combination of all three. So to have everything centrally managed and configurable, where if you think about the entities that combine this, it's what is the account, what are the account rules, and when that account logs into that specific store, what has to be shown for those contract rules. And again, that's a data model where everything is configured based upon product information, pricing, which is separate
Hmm.
from product, which is different than retail, because in B2B, a price is specific to a product and an account.
Hmm.
right? And then you've got payment terms, which are also specific to a store and to an account.
Hmm.
So centrally managing everything just means that you can configure all of those different B2B contract rules in a single store based upon account, or in multiple stores based upon multiple accounts. It kind of gets back to that one to many, many to one rule set across multiple storefronts.
And I also forget if you mentioned, but so far as use cases go, you had, I think, 68% of B2B companies run more than one storefront at this point. So this is absolutely crucial to be considering as B2B for sure.
Absolutely. With AI, you can find the data from different sources, but
Hmm.
the data is pretty consistently showing somewhere between 50 and 70% of manufacturers and distributors run more than one storefront. So it is a very, very common use case in B2B.
Nice. So just asking just straight off the cuff. I mean, you've mentioned PIMS a couple of times in our
Mm-hmm.
conversation so far. So why should I use a PIM or not? Why should I even consider using a PIM?
Well, if you think about a traditional PIMs obviously were initially built for building catalogs. If you go back 20, 30 years, that was the original use case. They were used
Hmm.
for print. That still is a feature in a traditional PIM, but traditional PIM is really more about workflow. If you're a
Hmm.
manufacturer, you have the engineering department, the product management department, the creative department, the marketing department, the merchandising department, go down the list. They all need to have a source of truth for everything. Zenode's PIM is not meant to replace that. That is a core feature of a true operational PIM that every manufacturer should consider if they need that, and if they're going to use that functionality. We get a lot of feedback that manufacturers and distributors buy PIMs, but they don't actually use the workflow, which is the
Hmm.
magic in a PIM.
Right.
The second feature of a PIM is syndication, the ability to have all the data feeds for Granger, Home Depot, go down the list in the correct format to syndicate data out to those sites. Makes perfect sense. But when it comes to managing catalogs in the e-commerce experience, because you have account specific catalogs, segment specific catalogs, maybe you're running multiple storefronts across regions, and you have regional catalogs, you can build an architecture where a third party PIM does that. And you have to have some sort of custom middleware and logic to push that into a traditional
Mm-hmm.
B2C retail platform model. And you can do that. Any company can do that. But again, it's additional tech debt, two logins, right? Doesn't add to scale if you have to add another store, another customer with a unique catalog. Like suddenly you're starting to
Yeah.
build this monster architecture. The reason it's in Znode is ease. You have a one-way or two-way sync from a traditional PIM. So if you think about it, the ERP feeds the PIM connects to Znode.
Hmm.
Zenode's PIM has unlimited attribution, and then the magic happens within the Znode platform, which allows the merchants, the e-commerce managers, the IT staff to actually build customer-specific catalogs, or it could be store-specific catalogs, go down the list and push those out into the experience. It just makes it much easier, and
Yeah.
it reduces tech stack debt as well.
And just the fact that Znode has the PIM built into it, one of the things, just kind of touching on technical implementation for, other PIM installs like that we've worked with here at Human Element, like working with Shopify, working with other platforms like BigCommerce,
Mm-hmm.
Shopify. Generally, when they have their own approach for the B2B modules and the B2B. Again, kind of touching back on the fact that it's an add-on feature for them.
Right.
It's not necessarily the core of it. And there's really nothing wrong with that. Those offerings started as B2C offerings, and then
Correct.
they bolted this on, right? So one of the things that we've noticed is that when you're working with a PIM in that respect, it's almost always a secondhand thing. It's not really, it wasn't built to be the core of that. And that's one of the things I've noticed with looking at Znode and working with Znode is that the PIM is well thought out instead of being like it was there to accommodate the original architecture instead of accommodating existing architecture.
Exactly.
So it just seems to be a better thought out solution overall. Just in comparison to other platforms that started their journey in B2C and then
Right.
decided B2B was something they wanted to get into as well. That includes Adobe Commerce, for
Mm-hmm.
example, any of the add-on extension offerings that you can get for Magento open source. It's all an afterthought. And again, we're kind of hammering on this a little bit in this presentation, but that's probably the best point that I have noticed about working with Znode is that when it comes to B2B, it's built from the ground up for B2B.
Absolutely. Yes. 100% of our customers are either running B2B or B2B to X business models. And the platforms you mentioned are fine platforms, but they really were built first for B2C and retail applications. So nothing wrong with them. But again, to your point, Znode was built from day one for B2B. And in B2B, data matters a lot because B2B is complex, right? I mean, you have account specific catalogs, segment specific catalogs, all that data management has to happen in a B2B
Mm-hmm.
platform. It doesn't have to happen that way because with software, you can build anything, right?
Right.
But if you're trying to reduce your total cost of ownership, reduce your tech stack, get to market fast, the platform is made to do that.
Right. One of the things that we've noticed in just working with clients over time is a lot of times you'll have a client that'll come to us and they'll have multiple websites. They'll have multiple brands, like one will be on BigCommerce, one will be on Magento open source. And usually one of the first things we want them to do is to reduce technical debt, reduce their overhead, reduce their budget, because then they can bring them together and have obviously multiple storefronts, multiple views within one storefront, and likely save a lot of money. Can you talk a little bit more about your perspective about bringing different websites and brands together to save budget?
Well, sure, absolutely. I mean, the biggest benefit when I listen to you speak that is clearly they have multiple different licenses they're managing,
Mm-hmm.
multiple different admins they have to log into. And in Znode, you can have different roles and permissions to
Mm-hmm.
allow for taking care of that scenario if you centrally manage it. But the biggest thing is multiple ERP integrations. So if a company, if a very large company has a division, um, that's on the West Coast that hits the same ERP as the division on the East Coast, and they run separate platforms, that means that there is a technology team managing the integration to the same ERP twice. Now, multiply that by 3 more platforms,
Right.
right? Now you're talking about a lot of tech debt and a lot of overhead that really doesn't add value to the business. The ability of centrally managing all of that with one connection to an ERP, or where it even gets more complex, is sometimes you have to route orders to multiple ERPs. So take that original 6 unique platform websites with now integrations not to just one central ERP, but 6 different ERPs. You're really building a spider web of code and tech debt that doesn't need to be there. With Znode, they can manage all those sites centrally. Znode does allow to route orders to one or multiple ERPs. So we can't get rid of multiple ERPs, but we can make it easier to manage the integrations across those and how the orders flow to those. So it really gets to the middleware between the ERP and these platforms is where a lot of savings can happen and a lot of simplification of the tech stack. And then clearly you've got, managing 6 different licenses. And again, think about you also have to have a developer who understands, say, Shopify versus Magento versus go down the list. You're
Mm-hmm.
also expanding the number of people that you need with unique skill sets to even manage all of those.
Right. So from what I'm hearing, and this is just from my experience and just what I'm hearing you say, Tom, Znode is obviously very capable of handling a lot of websites at once. So walk me through. Let's be crazy. Let's walk me through launching 50 stores at once, at one time. What
Well,
would that look like from the Znode perspective?
I think the biggest thing that we found in implementing Znode, and as a partner, Kevin, you'll understand this, is getting the requirements done correctly up front. So the smartest way to think about it, and with Znode, not only can you manage catalogs across multiple storefronts, you can create a theme, you can replicate a theme.
Mm-hmm.
And a theme is a collection of templates. So the smartest way to do that, one, is to get the requirements of all the different attributes that have to be in any given theme and put them all into one central theme. So for example, in the promotional products industry, some promotional products distributors work with alcohol companies. Think of a whiskey company. And in order to buy any merch from that whiskey company, whether it be glasses or a t-shirt, you have to be over the age of 21. So an
Mm-hmm.
attribute that has to be turned onto that store is, are you 21 or over? And they have to
Right.
authenticate age. Go down the list, that goes into payment types, every different contract rule. So the big thing is create all those attributes in the main theme and then turn them on and off as you launch a new store. And you can simply replicate that theme and apply it to a store when you're building the next store. So that's where efficiency comes in because everything is turned on and off and toggled. And then it's as simple as saying, okay, I'm going to stand up a store. Here's the catalog. Here's the theme. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
import this account or these set of accounts into this store and publish. We have companies that literally have taken 3 months to launch a store prior to Znode, And I'm talking pretty complex business models. These
Hmm.
are 500 million, $1 billion companies with big IT staffs that are now launching stores in a day instead of 3 months because of how easy it is to configure these stores. I was at B2B Online 2 months ago on stage with a company called Monroe Safety. They were recently acquired by a much larger uniform company. They have two people managing their stores. They run 42 stores,
Hmm.
and these people are not technical at all. They're basically
They're merchandisers,
they're
right?
merchandisers, they're digital
Hmm.
managers. They can stand up a store with a uniform program and publish it in about 24 hours. When they are in a sales cycle, their sales reps will say, "Can you stand up a store for me so I can go actually show this as part of the pitch to win new business?" So it's not just only about operational efficiency and great
Hmm.
technology behind it. It can become a sales tool. When your sales reps can walk in an RFP and say, "Let me show you how easy it is to work with our company. Here's your own unique branded storefront. We've already populated the items that you're
Hmm.
interested in purchasing from us, and we turn on voucher. Mr. or Mrs. CEO, try it. Here's your voucher. Why don't you build a uniform for yourself right now and buy it as part of this
Hmm.
RFP process?" Like that's a big win.
That's huge. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing that we've noticed. In just in the agency front here, being able to spin up, some sort of proof of concept
Right.
or something. I mean, that absolutely seals the deal a lot of times with the sales process. That's a huge deal, and it's really awesome to know that Znode is one platform that we know that can do that very very quickly. We've actually used that in the past as well, with doing presentations and whatnot there too. So
Absolutely.
so any given requirements gathering, like you mentioned earlier, requirements gathering, you want to get everything out during the requirements gathering phase and get
Mm-hmm.
as much as you can attribute wise ready to go. How easy is it with Znode if I happen to, I mean, let's be real, every requirements gathering session, it's you do your best
Yeah, you're
to
going to
get
miss some
everything that you
things.
need. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to miss some things. How easy is it in Znode to go back now that you have 50 or 60 websites to go back and add a attribute or a feature that was missing from all the websites to all the websites?
Well, you create a global attribute and apply it to all those websites, and you just have to make sure on the front end that when an attribute is created, it could be any type. It could be any type of data model or data is
Hmm.
exposed, and API is automatically exposed because Znode is a headless platform. It does come with a with preset templates and themes that come with it, but they're all calling APIs. You just basically have to expose that and make sure that the front end is accepting that API, and it's that easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal feature, and that's probably one of the best things that we've noticed about headless architecture in general is that it tends to eliminate the issues. Well, not completely eliminate, but it primarily eliminates the issues with caching and
Right.
things of that sort that you run into. Where I knew I like you go on the back end and you've changed it. You're like, I know I just updated this. I don't
Right.
know why it's not showing on the front end. Well, did you flush these 14 different caches? I'm not going to name any names, but there are some platforms that are like that where you
Right.
have to make sure you do that. But we don't notice that happens with Znode. Znode's very with it being headless. The front end tends to be you change it and it's there and it's done.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Everything is API first. The data model is very dynamic, so you can add attributes, user defined fields, custom tables directly in the platform. It won't impact the upgrade path. And anytime you add data, an API is exposed. And to your point, it just speed to market, efficiency, lower tech debt, checks all those boxes.
Nice. One final question I wanted to ask you that we really haven't touched on yet. We've been talking a lot about B2B, and we've mentioned a little bit about platforms that start B2C and they've gone to B2B. How well does like one installation of Znode handle when you have B2B customers, but you also want to have exposure to B2C customers?
Yeah, it's a very common use case. So it's to us, B2C is simple. Single catalog, single price list, single store. So in that case, if you have an ungated experience and you're hitting the website, Kevin, shopping for something, you see the MSRP price list, right? And if you do have an account there when you log in, then it gives you Kevin's price list. It's that simple. Or you log in and it says, hey, would you like special pricing? Become a customer, and you go through a workflow to basically onboard as a customer and get pre-approved with credit. And now you get 15% off whatever's in the shopping cart. Whatever the case is, Those are simple rules of moving from a B2C experience to a B2B experience. But at the end of the day, if you think about price list and catalog, a B2C experience is one master catalog of all items and one price list. That's about as easy as it gets in Znode,
Yeah.
because in Znode you can have unlimited catalogs and you can have unlimited price lists.
Right.
And
Which
the
is why a
pricing, by
lot
the
of,
way, is the pricing is cached in Znode. You can also do real-time calls to an ERP if you have dynamic pricing situations. But for the most part, if the ERP goes down or you have latency issues, you want those price lists stored or cached in your e-commerce platform.
Mhm.
So Znode handles all of that. So it's a very fast performance. But again, it allows for those rules to be managed in the e-commerce platform and make it easy to take that B2C shopper into a B2B journey as well. Or leave it as a B2C shopper in the B2C journey and just manage it centrally on Znode.
Nice. All right. Well, just kind of wrapping up here. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, Tom, today about Znode? Anything that anyone listening or viewing would like to know about Znode?
I don't have much to add. I mean, I could talk about the product for hours. I think this is what I see in the market right now. A lot of companies are looking for a new platform, and there's platforms that started in B2C and they have very large brands and they always make the RFP list. I would say work with a partner like Human Element. Get deep into the requirements. Make sure that you're not buying just a brand, you're also buying a product that is made for the specific use cases that your business needs to run successfully with as much native features and as much flexibility as possible. Check those boxes. I would also encourage people to take a demo of Znode if they are in market. Our sales staff is very consultative and we're more educational than we are pushy. But I see a lot of companies that buy the wrong platform and they either justify lots of technical debt or they go through re-platform 2 years later.
Mhm.
And that's very disruptive. So making the right decision is really important on the front end.
Right. And that's one thing. Thank you very much for mentioning human element there. That's one thing that we can obviously help you with if you are on your e-commerce journey, if you're just starting, if you're looking, if you have already felt like you've made that mistake that Tom mentioned, that you're several years into it and you feel like this isn't working for you. It's something that human element that we can help you with. We do this every day. This is our bread and butter. So if you can reach out to us at human-element.com. And I really want to just take a few moments here and thank Tom again. I know he and I have done one of these podcasts before. Hopefully we'll continue to do them. And we thank you for joining us today, Tom. And we will talk to you really soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
All right.